And then the next big turn was really, I had that moment of, it seems like from the outside, a really glamorous job, like working on these movies and getting them done. But ultimately, is Die Hard 5 going to, change the world? I thought. I'm like, no, no, it's not really that good a script. It's out. Everyone knows that now.
Yeah.
And I decided to get back into tech, into engineering. I was like, you know what? I can choose smaller problems, but problems that I believe should be solved. And I went to go do some small tech companies. So I had one previous exit back in my engineering days. We sold a company. We did the Independence Day visual effects through, won the Academy Award and all that. So we raised about 15 million for that company, sold it at a 6x multiple, which was great. And then went to do two smaller companies recently, and both of them failed. I raised about 3 million for each, and it was humbling. It's just humiliating. It was really hard bumping into friends, at the dry cleaners who were like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you're like, "Terribly. It's going really, really badly." I don't even want to bump into you and tell you how badly it's going.
Hello, and welcome to episode 226 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Steven Puri is the founder and CEO of the Sukha company with the mission to help millions of people find their focus, achieve more, and have a healthy work life. Steven's career started as a newscaster and interviewer for the number one youth news show in the DC Baltimore market, and then as a junior software engineer at IBM. After attending USC in Los Angeles, he began film production and produced computer generated visual effects for 14 movies, including Independence Day, which won the Academy Award for Visual Effects. Steven then produced some indie films and eventually went studio side to develop and produce live action features as the VP of Development and Production at 20th Century Fox and as an EVP at DreamWorks Pictures, where he helped work on Star Trek, Transformers, and more. After Fox, Steven returned to building tech companies and founded the Sukha company. Sukha means happiness from self-fulfillment in Sanskrit. The Sukha is a focus app that bundles all the tools necessary to have a focused experience and a healthy, productive workday. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Steven. Steven, so good to have you on today.
It was very nice to be here. Hope we have some fun.
Yeah, we should. We're going to definitely talk a lot about remote work. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your journey and to the work that you're doing now.
Well, I'll tell you, there are probably three important turns or twists that'll help inform, like, oh, that's why this dude is doing this thing and he cares about it,
Right,
which is
right.
when I was little, both my parents worked at IBM, both were engineers. So I was taught by my mom to be a software engineer, which at the time was just called a coder. You were coding. And I loved that. I loved staying up late at night, like being able to tinker with things. And then I won a Watson scholarship from IBM, which helped pay for college, and it gave me the opportunity to work at IBM during college to earn money. So I did that. And then the first big turn happens. I went to USC in Los Angeles. And in my dorm, a lot of my friends were in the cinema TV school because that is arguably the best cinema TV school in the world. And so, you end up talking about movies and, Friday night going to a movie, then going to have burgers with your friends, talk about it. And I happened to be there when film went digital. I could talk engineering because I was kind of a code monkey, but I had enough friends who had taught me like kind of what filmmakers think about. So it launched my sort of career coming out of college was not about engineering. It was actually producing computer graphics, which became producing films. And I did that. I rose up through the ranks. It was a lucky break. I worked hard. And that second sort of like arc was ending up executive vice president at DreamWorks, working with Kurtzman Orsi, producing that was the Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek 11, Eagle Eye era. And then going to 20th Century Fox in the live action division, where I was vice president there, and ran like the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine franchise, a bunch of stuff like that for the studio. And then the next big turn was really, I had that moment of, it seems like from the outside, a really glamorous job, like working on these movies and getting them done. But ultimately, is Die Hard 5 going to, change the world? I thought. I'm like, no, no, it's not really that good a script. It's out. Everyone knows that now.
Yeah.
And I decided to get back into tech, into engineering. I was like, you know what? I can choose smaller problems, but problems that I believe should be solved. And I went to go do some small tech companies. So I had one previous exit back in my engineering days. We sold a company. We did the Independence Day visual effects through, won the Academy Award and all that. So we raised about 15 million for that company, sold it at a 6x multiple, which was great. And then went to do two smaller companies recently, and both of them failed. I raised about 3 million for each, and it was humbling. It's just humiliating. It was really hard bumping into friends, at the dry cleaners who were like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you're like, "Terribly. It's going really, really badly." I don't even want to bump into you and tell you how badly it's going. And in the course of doing that, really had a lot of insights into remote work, read a bunch of the books by the smart people who've written about it, and was like, I think that's the next step, and wanted to share those tools because there's a lot of stuff from film that applies to remote work. And I was like, wow, I don't think a lot of people have both been a senior executive at a studio and also run a tech company. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. And having a kid, as you know, I've got a kid on the way
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. Lots of
Yeah.
projects in the oven.
We're going to get more into that, what you've learned
Mhm.
about remote work from the different industries you were in. But, I have to ask, you're a fellow introvert. What's a strength you have because you're an introvert?
Oh, I am super comfortable going deep and quiet. Like probably not probably, excise that word. The best times of day for me are 5:30, 6 in the morning until about 8 or 9. Quiet thought happens, like actual thought, you know? And then often, like after Laura goes to bed, there are a couple hours a night where it's just peaceful and I can actually do the things that move life forward as opposed to just the continuous Zooms and interactions that are kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this Zoom, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
doing too many, you're like, oh,
That's interesting that you do both ends because, like, I'm married to a fellow introvert, and I get my quiet in the morning, and she gets her quiet late at night while the rest of us are sleeping. So that's interesting. But the point is, like, there's a lot of talk about introversion and the need to recharge after social activity,
mhm,
but it's so much more than that. It's not
mhm.
just that. It's we need time to think and use our brains. You be able to go deep, like you're saying. We need to give ourselves time for that. And when we don't have time for that, that's where we struggle and maybe aren't doing our best work.
It is very true. I'll tell you, one of my favorite childhood activities was we would go to the library. My mom was a very strong believer in like learn, by the way, later learn, and then learn as much as you can. So we'd go there, and all three of us, my younger brother and I, and my mom, would max out our library cards, bring home stacks of books. I remember carrying my arms with like some under my chin just to hold them up. We go to the car, and there's a blue chair in one of the upstairs rooms with a window over the shoulder, and I would put a stack on one side and I would just sit there all day Saturday and just read and put it on the right until the whole stack was there. And it was incredibly joyful for me. Like it was such a wonderful thing. And I know some of my peers were out playing kickball or doing whatever. I was just like, this is my bliss.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, of course, on this show, we also bust myths. Is there a myth about introversion you want to bust today?
Well, I'll tell you this. When you and I met, we talked a bit about this, which is I know that in my rest state where I feel like I'm very comfortable in my element, there are certain patterns, they're very sort of like INTJ kind of thing. And there's also a thing that when I left to go to California, I realized I had to develop some behaviors because I did not know when I moved there, I didn't know a single person in the state of California. And I realized I have to be better about stepping out of the things that are super comfortable for me in order to get along because I can't be alone. And that has worked out well for me. Like when I went into my film career, it's a very social, relationship driven business. So, as much as you have to also connect with people. And that I think was something that I was some anxiety about. But ultimately, I found like a balance between, okay, I need to read these 5 scripts. I need to go write this code, whatever. And that allows me to be in my happy sort of like zone. But then there's also, value to, I'm going to go into this meeting with a writer. We're going to brainstorm stuff. We're going to think about the third act. We're going to, and I guess bringing a balance to it was a challenge, but now I feel kind of comfortable in both.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a balance because
Mhm.
the myth in there is we do need to connect with people. A lot of people say, "Oh, introverts don't like people," and I'm like, "Oh, that's ridiculous. We all like people. It's just
Yeah.
we do need some time, like you were talking about. We do need some time alone. We do need to prepare for things, but we also need connection. And it's those brainstorming sessions can be very valuable interaction. But sometimes you're going to think on your own. Sometimes you need to collaborate with other people.
Yeah. And there was a conversation I was having earlier this week that was really about taking responsibility for yourself. And it's something that I believe very deeply in, which is, should you and I become lifelong friends, it's part of I view as part of my responsibility to sort of let you know, like, what are my rhythms? Like, how do I like to engage with you? So, for example, if I'm not responsive at a certain time of day or during a certain activity, you're not like, oh, Steven's being a dick. It's just like, oh, you know what? This is kind of his time. And we're going to go out on the boat Saturday morning on Lake Travis. It'll be super fun. That's his time to do this. But he's not really in a chatty, like, let's go on the phone kind of mood now. And you won't know that unless I help you understand that about me. And I will need to learn about you. And that's your responsibility to say, like, hey, Steven, this is kind of how my interaction levels vary.
Yeah, that is so key. It's really important to talk to people about what you need.
Yeah.
And if you need some time alone, great. But like you're saying, make a different plan. Like, hey, you know what? I need this time for whatever. I need to focus. Well, let's go do this later at this time, that kind of thing. So that's just key, really articulating. Here's what I need. This is gonna make me be my best, but I still love you, and let's do this at a
Here's
different
something.
time.
Yeah, here's something that landed with Laura, my wife, is she's extroverted and thrives
Yeah.
on that. She's head of product for a large bank here in the United States, and she doesn't always or didn't always understand where I'd be like, I kind of need to go to my office upstairs and kind of do this thing. Da, da, da. And I was telling her about this screenwriter who's in the $1 million club, Ron Bass, and he had this famous thing with his family where he didn't talk to them in the morning. Like he would get up, I think early, 5:30 or 6 or something, go to his office and write. And there was no like, hey, who wants cereal? Do you want pancakes this morning? Okay, I need the car. There was no interaction. There was nothing. And when he came down at 9, 10 a.m., whatever, and had written stuff, and he wrote the kind of dialogue that like Julia Roberts was in his scripts, like Brad Pitt, you know what I mean? Like he writes movie star dialogue. And what his thing was with his fans, he said, I need that tranquility because once I start talking to you, I can't hear my characters in my head. And then I can't write dialogue all day. He's like, I need that time to do it this way. And when I talked to Laura about that, something clicked. She's like, oh, okay, you know what? In the morning, after you do yoga, whatever, you go up there. I'll see you like 9, 10 a.m. Fine. All good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that because, what do we need? And just share that. But at the same time, we are going to spend time with those we care about as well.
Yeah.
I don't quite have that big a space, but I've carved out a little bit of time in the morning where I'm not talking to people.
It is finding our little windows in the day. I know this afternoon after you and I chat, I have a little breathing room between now and dinner to just like focus on what happened this week, do the things that make me feel settled, which some people don't need. Like Laura is just continually in motion. A bunch of my friends are continually in motion. And for me, if I go continually into tomorrow without stopping, going like, okay, how did the week go? What got done? What didn't get done? How to prepare for next week? I won't go into even dinner tonight and feel like at rest. I'll be like, I need that little internal moment of like looking within.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we're recording this on a Friday afternoon, so you're at the
Mhm.
end of your week, and it's good to look back and look ahead, and take that time that you need.
I love that. Yeah.
So tell us, what's the Sukha company?
Yeah. So, what is this thing you do, Stephen?
Yes.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you, working backwards from the problem that I had
Yes.
might make the company a little more entertaining to hear about. So, as I was, exploring this, what people went into the pandemic, this remote work, hybrid work, that sort of thing, right? What was interesting to me is in film, it's never been called like the remote period of the film or the hybrid period of the movie production, right? I mean, you have pre-production, post-production, you have, actual production, something like that. But the funny thing is, every movie goes through phases. There's a remote phase, writers writing at home, writing in coffee shops, you know, writing at their partner's house. You get a little traction, some money, production office opens. 1 or 2 days a week, you go in there for some meetings. You spend the rest of the week writing at home. You're on set. It's, RTO in person, $100,000 a day. Then you go back to hybrid, you go back to remote. It sort of goes to that arc. And each stage, you kind of know how to manage your energy. This is going to be really demanding. Oh, this is when I go inside and do that. And I noticed when I got into tech, I had a couple problems that were like bad. One, I call it the cold start problem, which is I would work from home. Whatever time I was like, I'm going to start working at 9:30, 8:30, whatever. I would always find that there was something I was doing at that time that sort of delayed that. Like, oh, I'll just check my emails before I get going on the thing, or I'll throw in a little laundry so it's multitasking while I'm working. The laundry be going. Like there's always or picking my phone or something, right? And what I realized, because in our community, we have thousands of focused people, it boiled down to two problems that I actually had, and they're solvable. They're both about overwhelm. One was looking at my task list and being, there's so many things on this. There's no way I'm going to do 17 things a day. And yes, they all need to kind of get done, but it's overwhelming. And it stops you, paralyzes you from actually getting going, right? And we solved that for our members and myself by when you open Sukha in the morning, it's a website that helps you get going. There's a smart assistant that looks at your task list, helps you choose 3 things. This is all you get. You get 3 things you're going to work on. Let's be realistic. We have data that's 77% better chance. If you choose 3 things, you'll finish 3. Then if you choose more than 3, you'll actually finish 2, because it's just paralyzing, right? So that overwhelm at how many things to get done, we wanted to help get over that. And the other thing, I was like, sometimes there's a thing on there where I make a task that's not achievable in an hour or 2 hours. Write my book, like make the new app, do things like that. And that's when we had the smart assistant say, hey, you know what? Write your book is awesome. What if today's task is just outline the first chapter? Can we do that in 30 minutes? And once you've, worked that out, it helps you get over the cold start problem. And the other problem was like, you get distracted during the day. I get distracted during the day. And at the end of the day, I have that moment of like, where did the day go? I'll get up early tomorrow and finish the stuff I didn't finish, right? And a lot of that is just during the day, managing your focus and managing out distractions that a lot of companies want you to spend your life in their platform so they can sell ads, and you don't get the money from those ads. They do, right? And that was something where like, you know what? If you could look at the top books around this, a lot of them say, oh, music helps. There's a certain kind of music. Some people like silence. Some people like music. We have 1,000 hours of focused music. There are Pomodoro timers to help you remember to take breaks. Like I have ADHD. Sometimes you get so focused, you forget to stand up and just stretch. So we have little videos to be like, hey, do a 2-minute stretch. You'll feel better. So a lot of the Sukha company is built backwards from the cold start problem in the morning. How do I get going and organize my day properly, which it does for you. Or at the end of the day saying, oh man, I'm done earlier because I just, every time I open Facebook, my smart assistant was like, Steven, do you really need to be in Facebook right now? I'm like, no, I actually don't. So it's things like that. And hopefully it's fun and delightful. We wanted to make something that delighted people.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about focus. And
Mm-hmm.
too often whatever environment we're in, we're trying to do more than one thing at a time, which is not really possible. So
True.
how do we do that? How do
Let's
we
talk about what you just brought up,
focus?
which is
Yeah.
that the myth of multitasking, right?
Yes.
Which, as someone with ADHD, doesn't really present as hyperactive, but ADHD, the multitasking, distracted sort of thing. I believed, oh, I can do all these things in parallel. And the research shows you don't actually do them in parallel. It is you monotask until you get something done. Great. Or you monotask, you don't get it done. You context switch to another task, do that for a little while, switch to another thing, do that for a little while. And you do the same work, but you lose energy because to store remembering where you were with the thing that you're going to pick up later And then to remember the next task and where you left off, that burns brain energy. So that was a real learning for me of like, you basically have monotasking. You just decide if you want to break it up and give away time and brain energy to context switching, you know. There are other things, but that's a good little
Yeah.
nugget.
Yeah. It's like, where did I leave off?
Yeah.
And I've known some people that were pretty proud of their ability to multitask, but it's like, no, you're really not. You really are just switching, like you're saying. It's
Right.
you can't think about more than one thing at a time.
Yes. Can I give you something contradictory? This is
Yes.
actually a fun observation. And this comes from film. So when I was 20 and I was making that first baby step into film, right? I was at USC and I think I was a senior or something. And I was working at this ad agency that did trailers for movies. So we did a lot of Warner Brothers and Buena Vista Disney stuff. And two guys ran it, really smart guys, top of their game, high in demand. So it was a really great place to work. I ran the department that assigned writers to trailers. So we would get rough cuts of movies in that were coming out later in the year. And I'd be the one to go, oh, David would be perfect for this action adventure. He's written 3 trailers for that this year. Great. David, here's a movie. Go watch it. Right. So Jeff, one of the 2 guys around the company, comes to my office. I'm 20 years old. He's 40 something. Right. And he's like, Steve, he always called me Stevie. He's like, Stevie, you know Bart? I'm like, yeah, Bart in the Vault. Like, yeah, nice dude. Talked to him in the elevator, but yeah. He's like, you ever give him a movie? I was like, to write a trailer? Bart, the guy in the vault who drives the tapes around. Like, that Bart? He's like, yeah. I was like, I haven't. He's like, I got an instinct about him. And I was like, Jeff, like, you run the company, man. You've been doing this for 20 years. Your instincts are probably better than mine. So happy to give him a movie. He's like, okay, good. So he comes in my office 2 days later. He's like, how's Bart doing? I was like, I haven't checked. I gave him the movie 2 days ago, Jeff. I want to stress him out. He's like, okay, Stevie, okay, yeah, that's fair. So what else did you give him? I was like, I gave him one movie. He's never written a trailer before. He's like, Stevie, have I taught you nothing? And I was like, maybe. Like what? He's like, it's always about the other thing. Creativity does not work the way linear work does. It's not like doing a spreadsheet. I was like, okay. He's like, if you don't give him another movie, he will have one thing to stare at and the beads of sweat will come down his temples and he will like come up with every bad, obvious idea for that creative project. He's like, if you don't give him something else to think about, because the back of your mind is where that, oh, I don't know, chocolate and peanut butter. Oh, what do they taste like together? That will never happen. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll give him another movie. I did. Jeff, as you can tell from where the story is going, was right. Bart is a very well established writer producer for promos and trailers in Hollywood. And I saw that same thing throughout my film career. That idea happens, and the best creatives know they have to have that other thing. And there's a great book about this in the neuroscience of this for anyone who's interested called The Net and the Butterfly that talks about sort of the executive mode network that's like kind of executing actions. And when it's busy, the default mode network that does the, I don't know, what does this taste like sort of thing, that gets to run free. And when you can manage that, maybe you've experienced it like having great ideas when you're driving or showering or doing the dishes or something where you're kind of busy and you go, oh, you know what? Oh, I should. That is the same effect. So it's the only caveat or carve out I would have about monotasking is there's a creative process that actually defies monotasking.
Yeah, I mean, you're still not doing something at the same time, but like you said, some of our best ideas are when we stepped away and
Mm-hmm.
we're not trying to work on something actively,
Yes,
in the
exactly.
shower or in the car, that kind of thing. When I used to work in the office all the time, and when the pandemic hit, I went completely remote, and I learned that I missed that driving time, not because of the gas or the time, but I really had some good thinking time, just
So true.
stepping away and good ideas would come.
Yeah. Do you go for walks now?
So
That helps me a bunch. Just even walking around my neighborhood, just the process of navigating the streets and the traffic and the sidewalks frees that thing up where sometimes on the walk, I'll have the idea that sitting at my desk, I'm stumped on.
yeah, for sure. And you mentioned music. How do you pick the music for your app?
You know what? There is, okay, I'm lucky in that coming from film, I have a bunch of friends that are film composers. and they have a bunch of time on their hands right now. So when you look at the research, which says there is the middle of the road, sort of like, this is what most people benefit from, right? And we all have the friend that listens to hardcore something when they work, that's like, we all have the outlier. So this is not about the outliers. This is the middle of the bell curve. It's usually in the research between 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, non-vocal, ambient kind of music that helps you get into essentially what's a flow state. And anyone who hasn't read that book or even a summary of that book, Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian psychologist, he's the one who named flow state. That comes from his book, where he was like, you get into this state, and high performers do, where it's not just you paddling, it's the river starts to carry you forward and you do your best work, you do it faster. That's ultimately what we aspire to at Sukha, is to help you get into your flow state. I experienced it the first time, not knowing what a flow state was. I was on a flight and I think the American Wi-Fi was out. And I remember I had some like mock-ups or designs or something to do. And I looked up, I was like, why are we landing? Like, we just took off. Like, something's wrong. No, we had flown from Austin to San Francisco. I had missed the entire flight because I was just in what I was doing. I don't think I got a drink from the drink cart. I didn't go to the bathroom, like nothing. And that state, which actually allowed me to go to dinner that night in SF and not have the hanging pressure of, I got to get back to the hotel and finish my work. I was like, I'm done. This feels great. That was very interesting. And that's really the goal of Sukha, is to help you feel like, I'm good at what I do. I'm doing it. I'm in command of what I do, and I have time for what I want.
Yeah, that's the amazing place to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yep.
it's when we can get into that state, we're more efficient
Mm-hmm.
and it's enjoyable, but also
Right.
we come up with some great ideas and it doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't. And I'll tell you, especially having spent a bunch of time working at SF, there are aspects of that culture and in New York that is like the hustle grind culture. It's almost like a badge of honor. I was up until 2 a.m. coding on this. Oh my God, we were up all night. Oh, you all think you're living in Zuckerberg's garage and inventing the new Facebook. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
there is a bragging right to how long. And I would love to redefine that for ourselves, for the people that work for us, for the people we work for, as, what did you get done? Like, if your work is what you do and it's not how long it took you to do it, it's not where you did it, it's not even what time of day you did it, but if what you did moves your life or the company forward, I don't care if it took you 8 minutes. I don't need to know that you spent 16 hours for me to be happy. I need to know that what you did, customers started sharing with their friends because like, that's so delightful, this feature that's built. And you're like, thank you. Thank you for spending 3 hours on this. It was worth 100 hours, but you just happened to find a way to focus.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like, it's not, the goal is not to be busy. The goal is to get those things done that we want to get done.
That is it. Can I tell you why I named my company this weird name that no one can pronounce?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, because I get this question a lot. So Laura and I met in yoga, part of her daily life. 10 years later, we're getting married. And I've got a version of this running that does not have the name, right? A working title. And we go to Bali for our honeymoon. Very grateful that our life is such a place where you go there for 10 days and no one bugged me. I said to Laura, I've been struggling with every bad name. Maybe it's that other thing. I was like, flow state app 14, focus productivity mate, like every bad name, right? And I said, maybe on this trip, my unconscious mind will bubble up like, oh, this is what you should call it. She's like, okay, cool. Good luck with that. I'm like, do you mind if I talk to a couple of our early members, on the first day, just to seed my unconscious mind with like what they like? So I had a couple, I reached out, put it in the group chat. I was like, hey, who has a couple minutes to chat? Spoke to 3 people. I said 10 minutes. That's all I want of your time. They were relatively good. The third one, I asked the usual dumb questions. Hey, man, do you like the music? What's your favorite feature? Do you like the coach, the smart assistant thing that helps you? Do you like the distraction blocking or the mobile phone blocking? And after 8 minutes, I went into the wrap up. I'm like, David, thank you so much. I said 10 minutes, I'm going to let you go on with your day. And he said, you didn't ask me the right question. And I was like, really? What was the right question? It's like, ask me why I pay you. Okay. Why do you pay me? He said, I have a choice. At 3 o'clock, I can be playing with my 2-year-old, my 4-year-old. At 6 o'clock, I can feel where the hell did the day go? He said, the difference is, did I open your app in the morning to help me focus? And I pay you for those 3 hours because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I want to watch that YouTube video with them and I want to read that book with them. That's why I pay you the 30 cents a day, whatever I pay you. And I was like, whoa, okay, thank you. I told Laura this at dinner. She's like, it's pretty good. I'm like, yeah, this guy was more articulate about my company than I am. So we're going to bed. And Laura's like, we're brushing our little teeth, going to get to bed. And she says, you know what he was describing to you? Is he's describing to you that concept we hear a bunch in yoga, is your prana and karma and dharma and all these. She's like, he's describing sukha, when you are like in your lane doing the thing you're meant to do, you're good at it, it feels good, and you're in control of it. Like you can do it with ease. She said, that's what he's saying. And I was like, we're going to call the company the happiness company. We're going to call it the Sukha company. And I bought the URL from bed in Bali on my honeymoon.
All right.
Much to Laura's chagrin. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, leave me alone for a minute.
And what we're talking about is it's just so key. It's like you can get things done faster in that flow state.
Mm-hmm.
And you have then time to do other things that you want to do, whether it be playing with your kids, like your example, or something else.
Yeah. Some people use it because they have a side hustle. And it's just like, oh, I want to get my work done here so that I can go do the thing. I'm working on a degree. Or, like there was a guy, Roy King, who's a vice principal in Missouri. And he's been in there for like 2 years. And you see him nights and weekends working. And while he's a vice principal at this school, he was working on his PhD in engineering. And he finished it last month. And it was super cool. He's like, thank you. Like this allowed me to sort of compartmentalize so I can be really focused. If I have 2 hours of focus at night and that's what my brain has, I can use it really well. And he's like, you can call me Dr. King now. He got his doctorate.
That's awesome.
I'm super proud of it. He's a really nice guy. And, but he needed that quiet time of just help me use this time really well.
Yeah. Talk more about the timer and the concept behind that.
You know what? There is this concept, and I was not familiar with this. This is a learning that Steven had in the course of reading the books by the smart people, right? And there's an Italian guy who used, the kitchen timer. It looks like a tomato, and Pomodoro means tomato. And he just said, what if we were to do this cycle of like working for 25 minutes and the timer goes off, and then rest for 5, or refresh your mind for 5, and you do that cycle a number of times, and you do a longer break sort of thing. So that's basically the heartbeat of my platform, is where like that's actually kind of cool that you would take this break. And I thought, how do you make that delightful and beautiful? Like I want someone to come to the thing we built and just continually feel like in every interaction with every button, everything, there's like a sense of delight, like someone cared to delight me. So we thought, number one, when you're watching, the timer, you can start, it counts down from 25 to 0. You can click it, change it. Like I worked 55 and 5. That's my thing, because I just feel like that's a better rhythm for me. So you can edit it, can customize it. It'll remember all that. Your smart assistant will set it for you. But then also when your break starts, what's a healthy thing to do? Okay, you know what? Stretch. Like I sit here a lot. So every 55 minutes, I can click a little button, a little thing comes up, says, do you want to stretch? And there's a little, 60-second, 120-second video, which is here are stretches you can do at your desk. This is not like we're going to go out like we're football players doing some crazy, thing. Just that. You can do a breathing exercise. If you want to do a box breathing, there's another little video. You just click one of these. You get points if you drink a glass of water, because that is healthy. And I don't do enough of it, when I sit too long. Go for a walk. Get 15 points. And at the end of the day, you get a score. And you can compare yourself day over day. Like, am I becoming healthier and more productive? And you get points for not multitasking, by the way. If you start and finish a task, you get more points than if you just jump around and finish the same task. So things like that. Yeah, it's kind of what it is.
How does the timer help us to focus?
You know what it is there is research, and there was a great Huberman podcast, Huberman Lab, where he talks about the brain glucose levels. And it is true. Now they have the science behind it, that your brain glucose level does deplete. After about 90 minutes, you sort of like run out of brain food, if you will, right? Often why, you feel like you need snacks around if you're working a long time, that sort of thing. So what we thought is, okay, there's an element of I'm working, I'm focused, that is I need to stay in the state. And there's another thought, which is you've been there too long. You need to pull yourself out and do something healthy. So we kind of built that into the timer to say like, hey, you know what? You can do this cycle. You can customize it for your own biorhythm. But also after 120 minutes, like you don't get more points, you don't get more. We want you to take a break. If you do a 2 hour chunk of actually focused work, it you can multiply what you get done simply by dropping into a flow state. And that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, awesome. So you've been involved in remote work long before 2020, it sounds like.
That's the thing. It's like, yeah, I know when Zoom became a verb,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
had been working on that a lot. It was only really though in the past 6 years that I started studying it, understanding the problems that I felt were universal, and really smart people had written stuff on the science behind the problem, the science behind the solution. And you read the top 12 books, I want to say, and there's a lot of commonality. They have their own lexicon. They call things different things, but they're kind of the same thing. But they all talk about, like how to prioritize, whether you want to talk the Eisenhower matrix, whether you want to talk, eat the frog, they kind of come down a couple of principles. And that's what I wanted to build. I built something that worked for me, and happily it seems to work for others. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's definitely talk about the challenges, but first, what's the benefits of remote work?
The obvious ones that everyone talks about, yes, no commute time. Although you're right, you lose the little brain,
Yeah, you have to
thinking on track.
substitute somehow.
Exactly, you utilize substitute. So there is that. There is, for me as someone who runs a company, the advantage of you can hire someone anywhere. You can hire global talent, like designer in Dubai working with us, engineer in Montreal, another engineer in Vancouver. And there's no, oh, well, you're more than 20-minute drive from the office. Guess we're not going to work together unless you move. That is amazing, especially in this world. Now, not every industry can take advantage of that. I understand that, but many businesses can. So, those sort of things are super valuable, but it does present challenges in terms of if you don't hire well, you do run into that leadership thing of like, oh, is everyone working? Who's taking a nap during the day? Who's working a second job and not telling me? Like, you have to hire well for this to work. And you also have to lead from purpose. You have to lead from a place of why is this important? Because when people are engaged in a task, and Mihai talks about this in flow, one of the sort of conditions precedent that helps you get into flow is believing that what you're doing is meaningful. So,
Yeah. So what are some challenges that you see people have?
you know what? Distractions are many, numerous, right? So, that thing of I'm in the office, okay, I could go to the break room, I could chat with my friend about the game, I could do add to that everything around the house. Where you're like, oh, I could fold the laundry and I should probably do this. And then, you know, you can joke about rearranging your sock drawer, but there are a million sock drawers around the house that could be rearranged. And
Right, right.
I was really guilty of that. The things I talk about, I'm not high and mighty. I'm like, you know, my name is Steven P. I'm a procrastinator.
Yeah. So, we busted the myth earlier that introverts, we do need people. We do need connection. We need some
Yeah.
time too. We need
Yeah.
both.
You just have to manage what you
So,
need. Yeah.
yeah. So, especially in a solely, if everybody in a company is working remotely, how
Mhm.
do you build connection?
Well, it's interesting because when you look at it through the lens of respecting people or introverts or extroverts, there is the advantage of with remote work. You can attract people that maybe don't want to be in the office, like continually bombarded with people coming by their desk. Like you get people, especially people in creative fields, designers, writers, that want to have their own space, right? So that's another advantage we didn't really touch upon a moment ago. But you know, challenges of that sort of team with communication is, yeah, sometimes there's not the camaraderie. Oh, let's all go to, TGI Fridays together. I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
not
yeah.
that little thing of like, what are we all doing for lunch? And the random hallway interactions where you're like, oh, David, I wanted to mention to you, we were thinking of doing this thing. And you're like, actually, I designed something that would deploy it. You don't have a lot of that. So that is something where it does come down to like communication tools. Like a lot of companies, including ours, we do have a stand up where it can be super fun. It can be super engaging, but it definitely gives that moment of being like, hey, does anyone else have any solution to this thing that I'm kind of stuck on, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a forced kismet, if you will. So, tools like that. And then at some point, being in person does help. I'll mention this creatively in film. I have never had as good a collaboration creatively, like working on story or that on a Zoom or a meet or a Teams that I've had in person. Like I do think
Right.
there is something about some of those, like, I don't know, David, what happens in the third act? Well, you remember he's got the sword and the dragon is behind the cave. Like there's just something about being in the room. You feel like that little energy, and that I've never seen replaced on a Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. There's in person is definitely is needed for some things.
Yeah, something, and it's just maybe the pandemic for many companies expanded the palette, more colors to paint with, because now we do it respect. Oh, here are things where remote work for introverts that want that kind of time. It allows them to do their best, and if that is true for us, then it's just more publicly known now than it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. And as far as your app goes, how do you build community there?
You know what it is there is, and this is an optional thing, but a lot of people do it, is on the left side, there's a panel where you can see who's online right now. And there's a group chat where it's a very focused community. So people will post things they're working on. Writers will say, like, oh, hey, I just wrote this blog post. Someone would be like, hey, post the URL. Let's all go read it. Or designers would be like, oh, I put up my new portfolio on Behance or Dribble or whatever. And they'll post a URL. So it's like a fun community of people who want to share. A lot of people just read. I can tell you, I know how many people are in there. Yeah, it's less than 10% that do most of the sharing and talking as it is in most social. But it's fun because you do go in there and some days there's a lively conversation around, like, oh, that's a beautiful thing. Have you ever seen this? Oh, I'm having this thing. Oh, try reading this. So you can choose to participate in that if you want. There's also a very solo, like single player experience of, hey man, I've got 2 hours. I need to do 4 hours of work and I want to feel good. Just hit play, music plays, you do your work, smart assistant blocks everything. You know, you can lock your phone, by the way. You can shoot a QR code if you're like, that's guilty, is just shoot it with your camera, put your phone down, you pick up your phone, TikTok, email, WhatsApp, whatever. Your smart assistant will be like, Puri, do you really need to be in WhatsApp right now? You're like, you know what? I don't. Actually, I
Yeah.
do not.
Yeah, I'm guilty there. I could use that where I
I'm
don't pick up my
t-
phone.
yeah. When I'll tell you, we made a mistake. Maybe this is fun just to talk about the dumb things you've done. Is we initially thought, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to build a mobile app, and that'll like help people watch their phones. Right? Epic failure. Flush the money and the time down the toilet. Everyone has app fatigue. They don't want to download another app and run that. Da, da, da. When we made it so simple, it was just like, hey man, open your camera and tap this. Suddenly people started using it. And had I thought of that earlier, would have saved a lot of time and trouble. But you
Yeah.
learn.
Stephen, our time together's gone by really fast. Is there
I
anything else you want to share about remote work and how to be successful?
I'll tell you this: there's so much to talk about, and I want to share the things that I've learned. And you're welcome to put my email address in the show notes. If someone wants to reach out, it doesn't have to be about my company. It doesn't have to be about anything. If there are also fantastic apps out there that I don't make. So if you want a recommendation for, hey, I just want music. Oh, look at Brain FM, look at Endel, whatever. My email address is available. If you have a question, what was that book you referenced? Who's Cal Newport? What did Near AL write? Is there a blog post that teaches me something? Email me. I will not email you back 19 paragraphs of my life story as a child. I do work really hard to get back to everyone within 24 hours. So if I'm not sick or traveling. So if there's someone who wants, like, can you give me some advice or point me towards something? I'm happy to help. And that's probably the best thing I could say, because there's a lot of other stuff we didn't touch on, but you know,
Yeah. So in addition to your email, is there another place, website that people can go to find out more about you and your work?
oh, sure. Yeah. If you want to read our blog, which has a lot of information, or try, like, the Sukha itself has a 7-day free trial. If you think it sounds like it might work for you, no credit card. We don't charge you. We have incredibly high retention because the people who do the trial and sign up generally love it. So we have like 95% retention month over month, because most people who don't love it just are gone on the first day. They're like, oh no, I was looking for a task manager. I want to use Trello or something, right? Which is great. So the easiest way to do that is just go to the Sukha company, which is TheSukha.co, not com, but the Sukha.co. And you'll find the blog there. You'll find news articles, and you'll find the app.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Stephen.
David, thank you for having me, and hope this has been interesting.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I hope you take the time to explore other episodes and learn from other amazing guests. Remember, if you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there is now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the four-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link in the show notes. And I'd love to connect with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media for Quiet and Strong and much more. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. So many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.